Carl Sagan could not have predicted 2021, but he did see it coming. He wrote the following back in 1995, and we quote, "I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, the 30-second sound bites now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance." Roll that around for a while. Those were among his final published words. He died 10 months later. Here we are 25 years later, realizing just what he was trying to tell us back then.
Welcome to the chat. This is General Darth Grievous. Here we are, everybody. Hey, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the live stream, everyone. We're here talking about science. We're here talking about physics. And you know what? We caught a little drama. Guys. I know why you guys are all here. You saw the thumbnail. You're wondering, what's Ashton about to do now? Well, guys, I understand why people are afraid of me. You can just see the interaction that happened. If you're not aware, yesterday, Professor Brian Keating made a post about people that believe in, UFO, aliens, technology, etc. And so I responded saying that, gravity manipulation is real. The government has definitely been hiding it, no question. And he made a rebuttal, and I said, okay, I will refute you, with the various claims. So later that night, last night, I made a long post going through the details of it, and things got a little bit testy, guys. They got a little bit testy. So I don't really want to attack anybody. I mean, I don't get any benefit out of doing that. And I don't get any joy out of doing the Professor Dave thing where you just attack somebody from all their insecurities or what have you, or at least try to your best of your ability and try to tear them down. I don't find any fun in that. So instead, what I want to do is I just want to go through the arguments and point out why space is actually not empty, why there is a 0 point energy there. Because here's the truth. Here's the truth, guys. As a lot of you already know, some of you maybe are on the fence about, and some of you will learn in the future, I am absolutely correct about this technology. I might not be right about the finer points. The analogy is I'm basically the teacher with the answers to the test. On some of the questions, I don't even know how we got the answer, to be truthful with you. And what I've been trying to do for the last 2 years is figure out how we get to those answers. And I think we have a lot of good evidence for how we get to, how to make a wormhole, how and when the United States government figured out how to teleport things and make flying balls of plasma. We've got good evidence for that. And it's not fair for that evidence to simply be dismissed. Now, the reason why these scientists are afraid, they're not actually afraid of me, guys. I don't know if you guys realize this. They're afraid of you guys. You guys are the ones who terrify them. They're afraid to reply to my posts. They're afraid to get in the middle of any of these conflicts because, as you're going to see here, we have PhD professors that are pretty famous, well-known, talk to all the top mainstream physicists, getting ratioed all to hell, getting ratioed all over Twitter right now. In the replies, getting ratioed by random people with 1,000 followers, everywhere. And they, I read some of the replies, they really don't get it. They really don't get it either. I think in their minds, they just think this is all bots. Ashton's buying bots. These are all Ashton's bots that he's bought out to support his worldview. Like, no, these are normal people. My followers are normal people that are tired of the BS. They're tired of being lied to. They're tired of being lied to about energy sources. They're tired of working their jobs as second-class citizens to an elite ruling class. That's the true reality of it. And they're tired of it. And I'm not a cult leader. I'm not telling people what they have to believe. I'm just telling them what I believe. And I'm showing them the evidence. And these people, most of the people in the chat here, are coming to their own conclusions about this. They're coming to their own conclusions. There's no magic tricks. There's no sleight of hand. There's no psychological manipulation happening here. It's just a dude at 7 o'clock at night getting on his live stream, reviewing publicly available scientific papers. And one last thing before we jump into this, guys, is that I don't even think, the thing that scares me the most is that I think I've read more scientific papers than Professor Brian Keating has. And I only really started reading scientific papers like 2 years ago. But I start adding them up and I'm like getting over 100 now. And I'm like wondering how many of these professors have actually read scientific papers? How many of them actually do any research of science and what's happening in the science world at all? Like Charles Chase, we know, is investigating like what are the new free energy things that are coming out. He's basically doing the same thing that I've been doing, which is spending the last 2 years of my free time researching this stuff. Do any of these professors that are these science influencers, do any of them actually read any of the scientific papers? Do they actually like review them? Do they even understand them? Because let's just be honest, these are not easy papers to understand. The ones we were looking at yesterday, like I don't think there's that many people in the world that can understand some of those wormhole quantum entanglement papers. I don't think they do. And so, yes, to the point that's being made right here by Timothy, the DIRDs, if you want to know how you can help, we just need to be harping on the DIRDs. All the answers are right here in these papers. Almost all the answers. They're just in these papers right here. It's like aneutronic fusion propulsion, negative mass, negative energy, quantum energy extraction, wormholes, warp drives. It's all there, and it's all correct. So let's take a quick look at this. And then we got some videos to share for a little bit later, guys. So we're going to have an action-packed live stream tonight, guys, for you. Also, we've got, we're going to take another look at the Richard Bandurek video. I looked at a little bit more of it. Like, this guy is definitely on it. So you're going to learn tonight, space is not empty. You're also going to learn how gravity and electromagnetism have been unified, probably for like a really long time. And then we're going to take a quick look at the BPP as well. The BPP is going to kind of fit into this. So let's get to it, guys. Okay, so this is my Twitter. Where are we at here? Where did this whole thing with jig begin? Okay, where did this whole thing begin, chat? Where did this all begin? Okay, so it's only been a couple posts, I feel like. Yeah. So let's start. Yeah, okay, here. Oh, and by the way, guys, I accidentally went live with Ian Crossland when I was trying to do a pre-recorded interview. I just left it up there. I probably will delete it in like a day. We're going to repost it, fix the audio, what have you. I didn't expect it to just kind of be out there. But if you want to watch it ahead of time, you can check it out right there. It's available on the YouTube channel. It's a really good conversation, really fun conversation. And I am going to try to see if we can get a conversation going with Brian Keating. I don't think that's going to probably happen, just based on how this whole situation went down. But if not, the next conversation will be with Salvatore Pais, guys. Salvatore Pais. Okay, so here was the original response. So he says that, anti-gravity crafts aren't real. I come in, I just give the simple answer here, right? Because I looked through his replies. Gravity manipulation is real. I mean, what do people think a gravitational wave is rippling through? I didn't realize that we were still stuck on this idea that space is not empty. I thought we were past that. Like, even the normie brain physicists even admit that zero-point energy is real. They admit the virtual photons are real. How are we still struggling, like, especially after 2015, after we detected a gravitational wave with LIGO? How are we still struggling with the fact that space-time is a substance? How are we struggling with that still? So that was probably the first surprise that I got from reading Professor Keaton's point here, because once you realize that space-time is a substance, now gravity manipulation becomes obvious. It should work almost the same way as water does, fluid. Should be like a super fluid medium. It's just stuck in an equilibrium. So we think of the equilibrium as like the surface of the ocean. And so gravity would be like our ripples, perhaps, on the surface of the ocean. So if we have this medium, then all we're trying to do is we're trying to interact with this medium. We're trying to pull it out of equilibrium. That's the whole basis for everything, all the science that I've been pushing out there. So really, okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but as we're going to see in a second, that's the sticking point. That one thing, whether or not space is empty, is the entire sticking point between academic physicists and us. If you believe space is empty, then of course you can't make a warp drive. Of course you can't make an EM drive. Of course free energy is impossible. There's no external input that's possible, right? But if space is not empty, if there is an extra input into our system that we produce, now all of that technology becomes possible. Now warp drives become possible. EM drive becomes possible. Extracting quantum energy becomes possible. Even wormholes become possible. And now here's the craziest thing, guys. Einstein is the one. A wormhole is an Einstein-Rosen bridge. Do you know who coined the phrase wormhole? John Archibald Wheeler, guy who helped develop the hydrogen bomb. He's the guy that coined the term wormhole. It was just an Einstein-Rosen bridge before that. Einstein is the one that believed that we would have wormholes. Einstein is the one that believed that we would find a gravitational wave. So when people doubt whether or not we can make a warp drive, you are literally doubting gravity. You are doubting gravity. You're saying gravity is not real. You're saying gravity is a pulley force. Gravity is a fundamental pulley force that pulls things. It's not what gravity is at all. Gravity is not a fundamental force. And if it was, we would have found it a long time ago with the Large Hadron Collider. So honestly, that's the short version. If Brian Keating is out there and watching, that's all you need. That's the knockout. That's not Mike Tyson knockout punch. There is nothing you can say against that unless you want to start saying that Einstein was wrong, which is up to you. So, G-forces don't matter when you're manipulating gravity. That's the whole point of manipulating the medium. You're not actually accelerating your object locally. You're making a bubble or like a warp bubble or a wormhole around your object. The way they were able to keep it secret, people say the Manhattan Project, they say stuff was leaking out of the Manhattan Project. Yes, and this technology is leaking as well. China is trying to steal this technology, and so is Russia. And they are almost certainly going to catch up. I think it was Trump just the other day. They were saying China's going to catch up to us in this technology in like 5 years. That's what's going to happen, right? Because you can't keep it secret forever. You got Ashton Forbes on the internet blasting about it 3 times a week. I mean, it's going to get public. It's just a matter of time. So people do leak it. They do leak it and they whistleblow and they come forward and they say, we have teleportation. And Ben Rich says we have the ability to take ET home. And people ask him, how is that possible? And he says, all points in space and time are connected. And the physicists just go, deer in the headlights. It just bounces right off of them. Like they're not even humans. They're just straight up NPCs, right? They literally do say it. So when people say, why doesn't it leak? You say it leaks all the time. You just ignore it. It leaks all the time. Don't listen to random Joe Schmo who's in the forest recording a light. Listen to the black project engineers that literally worked on the technology. right? It's not that hard. When I started to dig into this, one of the first people I found was Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis. And you know how I found these guys? I found them through Dr. Stephen Greer because he had interviews with all these Black Project engineers. I didn't even know who half of them were. Don Phillips, Paul Siz, Tom Bearden. I find the Black Project engineers. Those are the ones that know about the technology. If you listen to them, I guarantee it, 100% guarantee, you're going to learn the same things that I'm telling you. Electromagnetism, electricity is the unifier between quantum and the macroscopic. Okay. Whew, we're going to have a lot of rants. And here's the other part about it, guys. Secrecy. This, like, when we watched the MH370 videos, I knew they were secret. I knew they were a big deal. You know, I mean, it's a missing civilian airliner. There's got to be some big reason. And you look at these orbs of plasma and everybody thinks aliens right away, you know, but I knew there was something really secretive about this, especially about the way people reacted to it. The way people were reacting to this video. They were like being super quiet. Like they didn't want to talk to me. They didn't want to platform me. That's not a normal reaction for a fake video. People should be wondering, holy crap, who made this? Where did this come from? How did you find this? Tell me everything you know about this. Instead, it was like weird silence, or don't look at that. That's fake. Don't look at that. That's how I knew there was something really wrong about this. But the thing that really took it over the edge was finding out this is definitely a nuclear weapon. This is a nuclear weapon. Because why? We think of nuclear weapon as like a big boom. But nuclear just means like understanding the fundamentals of the atom. That's what nuclear means. Nuclear means how do we divide atoms and combine them together? How do we understand things at the fundamental base level? That's why this is a nuclear weapon. And what that means is nuclear weapons can be almost anything that's scary. Any scary weapon is a nuclear weapon. So this is just classified underneath. This is a nuclear weapon. This is classified at the highest levels. And it's probably a black project. Like this is probably some kind of splinter project that came from nuclear weapons that almost nobody knows about. Like, sure, there's a bunch of people that know we have, you know, this type of science and capability. But the amount of people that we know that have weapons like this is a need to know basis, right? You don't know about this technology unless you have a need to know about it. Like, unless you're the dude recording the camera and you probably don't even know, or one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So that's why this video is just, they hate this video. They hate this video more than any other videos ever leaked on the internet, because this video shows the true reality. It breaches right through all the bullshit, and it tells us right away. How are they able to hide this? How are they able to hide this? Because now we realize, going back to the point, they hid it under national security. They hid it under national security because everybody, this is how the arguments always go, right? They say space is empty. And you say, no, it's not. It's actually not empty. Here are all the scientific papers. Here's the experiments that show that it's not empty. And then you know what they say next? They say, you have to show it to me. You have to build it and show it to me. Well, guess what, guys? Guess what? That's where they hit you with national security. That's where the Invention Secrecy Act, the Atomic Secrecy Act, that's where those things come into play. They don't mind you talking about it. They don't like it, but they don't mind you talking about it. They will never publicly address it. That way, even if you're right, even if you're saying the nuclear secrets publicly, if they don't ever address it, no one knows if it's true or not. So, and then if you build something, if you build a free energy device, they find out about it because you try to sell it to somebody, boom. Now you get something in the mail that says Invention Secrecy Act. This has been deemed secret for national security reasons. Sorry, it's going to go. We own this patent now, right? Otherwise, why were patents a national security risk at all? If not for energy reasons. So The other part of it, the last part of the national security thing, is fusion. When did this happen? It happened with the H-bomb. Guys, how do physicists not realize that we solved fusion? When I was listening to, we'll call him the debunker nuclear physicist, he couldn't possibly understand how energy production could exist from a non-ignition fusion system. There's no way. His mind couldn't comprehend it. In his mind, the way the math works, the only possible way to get over unity from a fusion system is if you have ignition, is if it's self-perpetuating and you have to put nothing into it. Put nothing into it, it's just producing free energy for you. Because their minds, free energy must be a self-perpetuating system that, we don't have to touch. But when you understand space is not empty, when you understand electricity is a broken symmetry of positive and minus charge, now you realize we can create efficient electrical circuits. And if we can do that, then we can produce fusion below ignition levels. Fusion over unity, more output than in, below fusion ignition levels, lower temperatures over unity. That's literally what helium fusion is doing. That's literally what they're doing. So that's the counterpoints that I made on this right here. Now, here was the thing. I don't know what these arguments are all about here that he was making here. Let's just go through them together and then the next 2 points. So first thing he says is NASA put together some panel or something like that. And so now first thing is an appeal to authority here, right? So we have the appeal to authority, which is you either believe physicists and NASA or you believe military pilots and amateur UFO proponents and congressmen, right? So it's like now he's playing the appeal to authority. You choose who you want to believe, which is funny to me because when you come at me with this, you're talking to somebody who literally has had NASA PhDs discuss the physics with him, literally on Tim Pool. I had NASA physicist Dr. Yu with me on Tim Pool, and we literally explained all the physics, all the science. So anybody that doubts this, Professor Brian Keating, anybody else out there, don't ever evoke NASA at me. If you do, then you better go watch the 2-hour live discussion that I did with Tim Pool and Ian Crossland and Professor Yu, because we gave you all the sauce that you needed. More than enough. Okay, so he doesn't understand my argument. That's fine. That's totally fine. Einstein predicted gravitational waves, not a sci-fi joystick for inertia. Now, this concerns me. This concerns me right away. And he thought detecting them was impossible. It doesn't matter whether or not Einstein thought detecting gravitational waves was impossible or not. Presumably, the reason why he would have thought detecting a gravitational wave is impossible is because he thinks that everything's an inertial frame, so you could never see the medium moving. You would always be moving along with it. So he probably thought, yeah, you're never really going to be able to detect one. It'll be too difficult. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. He's the one that predicted them. And yes, gravity manipulation is quite literally a joystick for inertia. Quite literally. That is exactly what it is. And that's exactly what Miguel Alcubierre's warp drive metric shows. And this is also what Bernard Hayes, Hal Puthoff, all the 0-point energy guys are saying as well. Because what is inertia? Inertia is resistance. Resistance to acceleration. Okay, what is the resistance to acceleration when I'm flying through outer space? It's the 0-point energy, because 0-point energy is space-time. That is such a simple view. It doesn't require complex math. It doesn't require any equations. Space-time is a thing. Space-time is the 0-point energy. And that is what is giving us inertia. And if you take the inertia away, what happens? You teleport. If you take away the resistance, right? I have an object moving and I'm pushing it back, right? I'm pushing it back. If I take my hand away, it just shoots off. If I put the resistance back, just like a spring, push the spring back, locks in. Remove the resistance, shoots forward. I think that's pretty clear, right? It's not really that complicated. I don't need a PhD to understand that. That's the simple version of how 0-point energy interacts. That's how we can control inertia. If you can control space-time, you literally have a joystick over inertia. And what we would think of as mass. We're not removing mass. We're not removing mass. We are simply making things seem lighter. That's it. So when people say, like, was Eric Lathwaite? Let me pull this up. Actually, I think I have a clip for it. Hold on. Let me see. Eric Lathwaite. Yeah, I do. I think I have it. When Eric Lathwaite was showing mass reduction, and people were like, this is just an illusion. Well, it was an illusion, but it's also just real. Let me see. Which one of these clips is it? Did I just call it Lathwaite? I have a bunch. Hold on. One sec, guys. Yeah, here we go. I think this is it. No, that's not it. Okay. One sec, chat. Eric Lathwaite. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this one's it. Okay, I don't have it.
Jumping ring.
Okay. So, I know what I called it. I just remembered. Here it is.
Release my left hand, and holding only with my right hand at the end of the shaft, I'll try to lift it up.
We're about to show you right now anti-gravity. This is Veritasium, 19 million subscribers on YouTube. He's about to show you Eric Lathwaite's anti-gravity. Okay, people wonder, what is anti-gravity, right? Gravitational waves. What is anti-gravity? Here you go. Ready for it? That's like, I don't know, 50-pound weight or something like that. He's about to lift it over his head with one hand. He's going to take a 50-pound weight on a wheel with one hand, or on a pole with one hand, and lift it over his head. It's not an impossible, but it's pretty tough.
Over my head. This is a 40-pound, 19-kilogram flywheel. Ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Let's go again. In 3, 2, 1. Nice.
That is a 40-pound weight spinning at the end of a pole. And what it's doing is it's doing anti-gravity. Why? It's just Lorentz forces, because it turns out electromagnetism is connected to gravity. So here's the thing about that. They debunked that. That's been debunked as, no, it's just these Lorentz forces. It's not actually anti-gravity. But nobody is countering the argument that it literally weighs less. Like, when you actually hold it, anybody that tries to do that will say, yes, it weighs less than it weighed before. So where's the disconnect? Who's wrong? How can both of those things be true? It quite literally is easier to lift up while it's spinning. Nobody denies that. It's easier to lift up while it's spinning. Okay. So there you go. How? Exactly how? It's all because of the spin. The spin is creating a force that is going the opposite of the direction of gravity. It's kind of a complex spin force, but the net force of it is going opposite in the direction of gravity, right? Gravity. And so this is what's making it seem like it's lighter. Is the 40-pound weight actually less than 40 pounds? No. It's not actually less than 40 pounds. It just feels less than 40 pounds because you're getting lift. You're getting lift out of it. So what is anti-gravity? Anti-gravity is just a lift force against the force of gravity. Anti-gravity is just a force that counteracts gravity. It's not a thing that negates gravity. You're not negating the gravity. You're just changing the pressure. That's it. Gravity is a pressure force. So if you want to create anti-gravity, create a pressure in the opposite way. That's it, guys. That's literally it. That's all there is to gravity. So here's the funniest part, guys. Again, I'm just a dude off the street. I'm like Woody Harrelson in White Men Can't Jump. They were just like, oh, pick this dude up off the street right here. He knows literally nothing about electromagnetism, doesn't know anything about electrical engineering. That was me 2 years ago. And now I'm coming in the streets and I'm going, this is it. It was actually just normal physics the whole time. It was normal physics the whole time. It was all the equations that we have out there already. All we really had to do was just like take it to its next level. We had to look at the universe in a slightly different way, using the same experimental empirical evidence we already have. Just take all the empirical evidence. In fact, take all the empirical evidence we've been ignoring. Sonoluminescence, Aronoff-Bohm effect, Casimir. Add that in as well. Come up with a new perspective on the universe. And then booyah. Dark energy explained, dark matter explained, mass, inertia, gravity. Everything is explained. Now, if this is blowing your mind, let me add one more thing to it. This has been figured out since like the 60s. I am over 40 years old, and this predates me, predates my life. We're just figuring this out now in 2025. Now, before we go look at the rest of this here, I want to point out there is no way we're going to be able to convince everybody. There is absolutely no way. I mean, holy crap. We are just struggling. We're still struggling with space is not empty in 2025. Chat, we might be cooked. Oh, wait. Why did it disappear? Come back. We might be cooked. So even Einstein was wrong. I mean, he was wrong about some stuff. He was wrong about the photoelectric effect, but he was not wrong about gravity. He was not wrong about gravity. Okay, LIGO. So anyway, let me go ahead and give my reply here. So basically, he brings up LIGO, which is weird. I don't really understand why he's going to try to bring up LIGO. And then he brings up how much mass would be required to manipulate gravity. It requires a huge amount of mass, but he's missing some key points. I don't think I addressed this last one, so let me address this one right now here. The idea that we need a huge amount of mass to manipulate gravity. Because anybody can understand the idea that, well, we know we can manipulate gravity. Look at that black hole. We look at a black hole and we see the light coming around the black hole, all the way around the black hole. The black hole is between us and the light source, right? And we can see the light bending around the black hole from two different sides. So we know black holes are geometric manipulations of space-time. A void in space-time. We know that. So then you say, well, why can't we just do that and make a wormhole? Just from a conceptual standpoint. I just do that. But then now here the physicists come in, the PhDs, and they go, but we can't, there's no way we can get the mass of a black hole. It's too much. You can never get that much mass. It's impossible. So what are they missing? They're missing something. What are they missing, chat? They're missing the same thing that they don't understand about fusion. Scale invariance. The question that we would ask, if I did a debate with Professor Brian Keating, the question that I would ask him is, what is scale invariance? Do you believe the universe is scale invariant? That things that are very big can be made to be very small, and things that are very small can be made to very big? Or do you believe there's a magic cutoff? At a certain level, quantum mechanics stops working. Everything above this is general relativity. There's a cutoff level, and the universe works two different ways. Does it work two different ways, or is there just one way that the universe works? Because if it's scale invariant, then we don't need a giant black hole. We just need a very, very, very small black hole. Right? Why? Because gravity manipulation is about density. It's about density. It's not about how big your black hole is. It's about how much energy can you fit into a small space. If you can fit a huge amount of energy into a small space in a small time, then you're going to have curvature. You're going to get gravity manipulation. And then if you want a wave, what do? If you want a wave, you pulse it. You turn it off and on. So all we need to do conceptually, perfect. Thank you for Pat. DUDT. Density over time, or change over time. Density. So what we want to do is we want to pulse it. We want to shoot it up, put a huge energy density into a small point, and then undo it. And then what happens if we do that? We ride the wave. We create a gravity ripple. We create a gravity wave. Just like a surfer. Works just like a surfer. Is the surfer moving on the surfboard? No, they're standing still on the surfboard. The surfer is standing still on the surfboard. The wave is moving. Same thing with a gravity wave, guys. Okay. Oh, shit, chat. We are cooking tonight. So, if you're pulling 10 Gs, your organs liquefy. Well, here's the point. You're riding the gravity wave. You're actually not connected to the inertia at that point. So that's the reason why that doesn't apply. Now, where was my reply? So I think I already hit the key points here. Oh, damn. Because when you evoke NASA, not only is it Dr. Yu, but I've got the best evidence ever. The Breakthrough Propulsion Physics Program, BPP. Chat, I'm one of the only people that's done a deep dive on this program. In fact, you can't even find this image I'm going to show you if you Google search. I know because I was searching today, and the way I had to find it was through my own Twitter posts. Program manager was Mark Millis, 1996 through 2002. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that in a second. So it's not just Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect, which he completely dismisses later on. That definitely shows we're in a medium, but the Casimir effect, Lamb shift show it as well. We have multiple experiments that prove we're in a medium. No question. They don't like the Michelson-Morley experiment. Don't worry. They don't like that the Michelson-Morley experiment exists, or they like it that we have a debunk of that as well. Okay. And then just like I said here, once we know space is not empty, then we can manipulate space-time. This is literally what Miguel Alcubierre's warp drive metric is all about. One of the first surprises to me was finding out that, oh, creating a wormhole is literally just Miguel Alcubierre's warp drive metric. Yep. So when people say, oh, where is the science hiding? It's not. It's literally just Miguel Alcubierre's warp drive metric, 1994. 1994, guys, that's the year Jurassic Park came out. Don't at me on how I know that. 1994, Jurassic Park comes out. Miguel Alcubierre's warp drive metric comes out. The science has been publicly available since then at a minimum. Since then. Okay. And like I said here, we don't need to create a black hole. The public physics has advanced to the point now where a spinning polyhedral wormhole requires a negligible amount of negative energy. And before anyone tries to come at me with exotic energy doesn't exist, again, we are in an equilibrium. Break the equilibrium, and now you have positive and you have negative energy. Negative energy is just below equilibrium. It's really that simple if you want to think about what negative energy is. So in terms of our negative energy requirement, we have an arbitrary negative energy requirement, and now we have an access to negative energy requirement. It's our 0-point energy. It's our anti-de Sitter space. It's our virtual photons. It's our ether of energy. And then the last thing I told him in response was, there's no question that fusion has been covered up with respect to nuclear technology. It's not a question. So if we see a fusion propulsion system flying around in the sky, we should not be assuming that it is alien. It could be alien, who knows? But we literally know that inertial electrostatic confined fusion was related to the H-bomb. How do we know that, you would say? It's on page 1 of Friedwart Winterberg's textbook about thermonuclear principles. Physical principles of thermonuclear explosive devices. Right on page 1, right on the cover of the book, it says, the physical principles of the H-bomb are the secret to unlimited clean energy of fusion. Just page 1, right on the cover. And it says it was kept secret due to nuclear classification. Simple as that. And now, once you start digging into IEC fusion, like who's doing IEC fusion right now? Simple question, right? That would be the next logical question that we come to. Since it was covered up, since it was kept classified, who's doing it? Oh, it turns out Tri-Alpha Energy and Helium Fusion are doing it. And they're both supported and backed by the DOE. And you can make the argument CIA, because Mithril Capital is one of the first investors into helium fusion, other than the DOE. They are actually the first, other than the DOE. And Mithril Capital is Peter Thiel, Palantir, etc. So I'm actually surprised I have to do more than that. The other company is Tri-Alpha Energy. Tri-Alpha Energy, nobody knows what they're doing. They're getting huge, huge amounts of funding, but they're doing field reverse configuration. They're doing plasmoids. They're doing inertial electrostatic confined fusion, or they call it now magneto-electrostatic confined fusion. They have a couple of different splinters. Okay, so this is the thing. Even if you throw away UFOs, aliens, whatever, the government definitely has been successfully covering up fusion. Definitely, because we don't have fusion today. We don't have it publicly, right? I don't think anyone's saying that. And we have textbooks that say they've classified it because of its connection to thermonuclear weapons and H-bombs. So, I don't know. I'm trying to make this as palatable as possible for the academics that just really can't believe that they're being lied to. Did I say electrostatic? Inertial electrostatic confined fusion. Yeah, IEC fusion. Inertial electrostatic confined fusion. So inertial confinement fusion and inertial electrostatic confinement fusion and magneto confinement fusion. All very similar. And they can create either dense plasma focus fusion or field reverse configuration fusion. They're all about different configurations of getting your plasma to interact, basically. Okay. Whew. Okay, let's hit one of these donos. I just saw a huge one come in. Can you ever see yourself not going public with something you learned because it would be too dangerous to disclose? I mean, everything that I've learned has been publicly available information. So nobody's fed me some classified information. If I had something like that, maybe. But that's why I ask people, don't ever send me anything that's classified or secret. I don't even want to have that dilemma. I've already had the dilemma of, is this too far? I had that dilemma multiple times. The most recent time I had it was when we were looking at the optical vortices of spin, because it's literally they're figuring out how entanglement through the ether works. And that, to me, is probably pretty close to the cutting edge of where they're at right now, is like figuring out how to manipulate reality. So I had some second thoughts about it, but then I just kind of decided, you know what, like these people are never going to admit to any of this. So I'm just going to push them in the corner as hard as we can push them. So that's a true answer to that. Now, what I said to, who did I say this to? I think it was Demystify Science said, would I do this again? And I said, I told them the Bob Lazar story. So if I was on the inside, I would never whistleblow. I would never whistleblow if I was on the inside. No way. Especially not after I know what I know now and how people react to this information, react to this science. They would just discredit you rather than just believe it, right? Even if you had like an alien body and you're like, guys, I just came out of Area 51. I got the alien body with me here. They're going to say that it's like, they're going to say it's a dead goat that somebody mutilated. They'll just make anything up and they'll discredit you. They'll say you're a kook. They'll ruin your future prospects. They're just going to do anything they can to destroy you. So that's the reason why these whistleblowers generally aren't more public. And that's why they're not breaking their NDAs. People are saying like it's illegal for them to, these NDAs are illegal because the government's doing illegal things. That's not true. That's objectively not true. What the government's doing is legal. In fact, by definition, it can't be illegal. Whatever the government does, like the whole point is it's legal. That's part of the problem with the situation, is that these NDAs are legal. And these NDAs say you will go to prison for violating them. And you will go to prison if you violate them. You 100% will go to prison. And you just saying, well, it's not legal because we were doing illegal activity. What illegal activity specifically? Reverse engineering a UFO isn't illegal. So, okay. So that's my last point on, like, I actually do agree with Professor Keating that Congress and the UFO people, they're not with it. You know, they're not even on the same page right now as we are with this technology. And they're not close either. Just being honest, they're not close. Like disclosure, UFO disclosure, alien disclosure, we're decades away from that, if ever. If ever. I don't think they have any real plan to ever tell the truth. So he's right about that. Like, unless you actually follow the science, unless people are digging through the scientific papers, actually trying to understand how these UFOs are flying and stuff like that, they're never going to get to the truth. Never. And we weren't close before this, by the way. This is my personal opinion, but we were not even remotely close to get into any of this stuff. I don't think there's only people who are even remotely close is like dark journalists and Joseph P. Farrell and like Robert Temple and the people talking about plasma. And everybody just thought they're being insane, talking about nutty stuff. But anyway. Okay. Now let's get to the spice real quick. Let's get to the spice. Oh, actually, no, we're going to show this clip first. Here we go.
At around the same time.
Let's do this in a different order. So this is the graph that I found I was reading through Mark Millis's papers on the breakthrough propulsion physics lab from 1996 to 2002. And it's pretty insane, the names that were connected to this. You see these names over here? These are the names. These are some of the names that were connected to this program done by NASA. Eric Davis, John Kramer, James Woodward, George Hathaway, Hal Puthoff, Bernard Haish, Robert Forward. This is Eric W. Davis's mentor, by the way, and Frank Mead of the Air Force Research Labs. What? And so let's just go ahead. Do these names look familiar? These names probably should look familiar because it's basically a who's who of our S tier secret engineers. I mean, we just did a tier list of engineers, and like at least half these dudes are on it, and they're pretty highly ranked as well, like A and S tier for the most part. So then you look at this, and people wonder where I got this. Like I said, you have to dig through. You actually have to dig through these papers to even find this graph. This is like their thought map of all the different science, physics stuff they thought might be real. Now, I just want to point out, if you look at this over here in the right middle, you will see faster than light self something or other quantum mechanics. You see wormhole induction. You see warp drives. You see wormholes by Matt Visser. You see space warps. And you also see metric engineering. All of these are in green. They're all in green. What does green mean? It means it's a hypothesis. So they've basically, it goes from the left to the right in terms of what they've engineered. So green is about halfway through. They've collected data, they've defined the problem, and they're ready to basically start testing it. That's what that means. And then the green at the bottom says continue study. So all of the warp drive stuff, space-time metric engineering, polarizable vacuum, that's all green. In 1996. Well, let's just say this is 2002. Let's go by the end year. 2002, they were ready to start testing warp drives. Says it right there. Right there. Now, publicly, the BPP program lost its funding and nothing ever happened. Publicly, nothing ever happened. But we looked at the names that were connected to this. And these are Black Project engineers. These are no question Black Project engineers right here. I mean, Eric W. Davis is literally testifying to Congress as a whistleblower. What is he whistleblowing about? Why would Eric W. Davis be whistleblowing about aliens? He's a physicist. He's not a biologist. What would a physicist be testifying to Congress about? Maybe wormholes? Maybe that we've literally figured out teleportation? Vibrating zero-point energy mirror. I'm just going to read off some of the other green ones. ZPE equals inertia, Bernard Haish. Polarizable vacuum, Puthoff. EM grav wave transduction via superconductors. Negative energy is in green as well. There you go, chat. I don't want to hear from any mainstream academic physicist that hasn't at least reviewed the Breakthrough Propulsion Physics Program by Mark Millis. Now, before you say, Ashton, you're being conspiratorial, Ashton. You're being conspiracies. Look, are you being a conspiracy theorist? I'm just going to show you the Science Channel. This is the Science Channel's documentary about gravitational technology cover-up. The Science Channel, or yeah, this is Science Channel.
US, at around the same time in the U.S.
Sorry, what was that name again?
Project headed by aerospace engineer Mark Millis.
It was around
Chat, we have a hit, chat. We have a hit. Mark Millis is right there. There's his face right there. That's the guy that was the program manager for the BPP.
At around
NASA's not doing that work right now. Sorry, guys. We lost that technology. We had gravity wave manipulation, warp drive, wormhole technology, extracting quantum energy, negative energy technology. We lost it. You know what? We had it 2002. That's just what happens with technology, guys. This is a very, if you think this is weird, this is common. This is common, chat. Don't be a conspiracy theorist and assume they're hiding technology. No. We lose technology all the time. It happened with the moon as well. We went to the moon back in the 60s, and then we just lost that technology. That's how technology works. Once you lose it, it's gone, and you can never get it back again. Then you have to start over and figure it out all over again. So don't be weird conspiracy theorists, guys, and think that the breakthrough physics propulsion maybe figured out wormholes or warp drives just because the program manager is doing documentaries on Science Channel. Just because he's doing documentaries doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. My God, the program manager is doing documentaries on the Science Channel where he's like insinuating that they just covered it up. Man, well, can Mark Millis talk to me? Man, I swear, the stuff that people find, chat, I seriously wonder how you guys find this stuff. So, don't come at me if you are a normie. Now, guys, space is not empty. We've proven it a million times, but I guess we have to prove it again. So, I responded to, Professor Keating got a little bit saucy with me here. First thing I noticed in his reply, this is definitely AI. This is AI, bro. This is AI. So he took my post and fed it into what? Chat GPT or something like that? Don't do me like this, bro. Don't do me like this. I can tell if you're sending me some AI slop, like right away. And I think he got a little bit upset when I literally just called him out on it right away. It was like, dude, I can tell when you're sending me AI stuff with all these weird links in it, with these weird dashes that no humans ever do. You know, like no one's doing this. Like, look at this, like spelling this out and then having a weird dash with like DOE on here. Like, you're not doing this, bro. So at best, you copy and pasted it, but more likely you just used AI to do it. And let's just be honest, guys, AI, you can't just ask AI a question and it just feed you back the answer. Like, you actually have to vet through the information and see if it's correct or not. AI is not some magical tool that just knows everything automatically. At least not yet. Probably soon. Okay, so let's see. Oh, this is crazy. So he says this NASA person said that we investigated and we found no secret technologies, no exotic technology evidence. Well, what did they They reviewed classified and unclassified evidence? What does that mean, man? Did they go to Lockheed Martin and get them to turn over the Black Pride? Of course they didn't. I reviewed classified evidence. Just because you reviewed a piece of classified evidence doesn't mean that you've ruled everything out. These are terrible arguments. No PhD physicist should ever be making such an illogical argument. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. You understand that basic reasoning, right? Oh, NASA investigated themselves and they found that they weren't hiding anything. First of all, I believe they could be telling the truth. NASA doesn't even potentially have access to this information. But even if they weren't, even if they, there's still a possibility that they aren't telling the truth. and that they do have access to it. Why would they tell the truth about something like this? And if it's kept secret for national security, for weapons reasons, then even people that I talk to that want stuff to come out, they still agree that we've got to keep stuff secret. So it shouldn't be an argument about, are they hiding stuff for national security? Are they hiding nuclear weapons for national? Of course they are. They admit that they are. The question is, what is a nuclear weapon? How do you define nuclear weapon in 2025? And then, it's just all the same lame arguments, right? Like it didn't prove that you can do anti-gravity or propellantless drives. Like, okay, yeah, it didn't prove it. It just showed you that, yes, the physical concepts are real. There's nothing wrong with them, but they didn't build and show the public a warp drive. Why? Again, it'd be national security, even if they wanted to. The ether was debunked 120 years ago at my alma mater, Case Western. There's zero evidence for it. And in fact, no modern accelerators like CERN could function if there were. I don't even know what that last part's supposed to mean. Why does he think that a particle accelerator couldn't function in the ether? What's his theory there for that? Does he think that light is a particle shooting around all the time? Light is a wave. Light is a disturbance in the medium. Light is literally just a disturbance in the medium. Of course, a particle accelerator can work in a medium. Anyway, I find this is clearly like the biggest point, right? You do not understand Ehrenhoff-Bohm. It shows gauge potential holonomy in QED, not a mechanical medium. Okay, well, this is the part where I can tell right away they're just trying to be confusing for the sake of confusing this, because he doesn't understand the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect. You don't need to be confusing to understand the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect. If I take a cylinder and all the electromagnetic fields are inside the cylinder, then there shouldn't be an effect outside of the cylinder. That's the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect. If you want to explain to me without using a medium how that's possible, do it in plain English. Don't try to the U4 symmetries in the holometry of the QED, not the mechanical medium. You know what? Just explain. If you're so smart and you understand it so well, explain it in plain English. Because I'm looking at a cylinder where all the electromagnetic fields are in the center of it, and somehow there's an effect outside of it. That's an experimental proof. The Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect. That's what it's called. This is what's so crazy. I don't think these people even understand their own physics. So then the rest of this stuff basically boils down to, okay, if you don't believe that a medium exists, then you can't believe in warp drives, EM drives. You can't believe in inertia modification. Entanglement doesn't mean medium. Loophole-free Bell tests rule out local hidden variable ether. Well, this is definitely wrong. No signal theorem, breaking causality, that's true. We're not going to break causality. But that doesn't mean that we can't have teleportation or entanglement. Now, I haven't read this. I'll read this one later and take a look at it. But I guarantee you entanglement is because of the ether. 100%. We're in a medium. That's why there's entanglement. I guarantee you Professor Brian Keating cannot explain why quantum entanglement exists. No chance in hell. Without a medium, you have no chance of explaining that. And then, let's see. The last bit. Thousands of students have built tabletop fusers. None imply hidden gravity manipulation. Well, building a tabletop fuser is not exactly the same as building a massive billion-dollar fusion device. But don't worry about the tabletop fusers, because helium fusion is right around the corner, and they're going to prove me right, but well before any tabletop fusers do. So I think the key element here is that, yes, you can produce a stable plasmoid. Ken Shoulders showed it way back in 1989. And so that's essentially what they are doing with helium fusion, stabilized plasmoids. Let me see. Oh, and then lastly, Eric Davis's papers are speculative papers. They're speculative, chat, not hardware demonstrations. This is once again how I know this is AI. This is how AI writes. People don't talk like this. AI talks like this. Yes, of course it's speculative. I mean, this is the problem. Like, it's so simple what the problem is. Yes, if it's a national security weapon, you don't get to see it. Not ever. You don't ever get to see it. Does that not, when you say, oh, it's not real because I wasn't allowed to see it, does that mean nukes aren't real? None of you have ever seen a nuke in real life before, and you never will, God willing. Does that mean nukes aren't real? Of course they're real. The only thing you have to know is E equals MC squared. Now you know a nuke is real. The same is true for warp drive. We know warp drive is real. It's not a question. Einstein's equations prove it to be real. We've already detected gravitational waves. You don't need to see it to know it's real. The scientific papers are written. The Air Force Research Lab is not going to show you the warp drive technology, not until they have to. So arguments like, it wasn't demonstrated to me, therefore it's not real, are the dumbest possible arguments anyone can make. Okay. And by the way, that was definitely written by AI. And, you know, so I point out here, like, professors should teach. If you're a professor, look at what I'm doing. If you can't at least do what I'm doing, just get in front of a live stream and explain things in a normal way, then how can we trust you to teach the youth? How can we trust you to teach the youth? Are you teaching them? Or are you just reading from a textbook and having them recite it word for word? And is that even teaching? I mean, I really have to wonder. So Dr. Yu is not somebody who's going to have access to build this stuff. It's not random people working at NASA. Where this stuff is being built at is sites like Air Force Plant 42, where they're building like the secret stuff. And Air Force Plant 42 has multiple black projects working on it like all the time. That's where they're building this stuff. And it's not Dr. Yu that's doing it. It's people like Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff and Bernard Haish, all these engineers. They're the ones that get brought in. That's probably on a contract that's not even under Lockheed Martin. It's under like a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. They come in, they go to that Site 42, and they build something. They probably don't even know the bigger picture of it. So that's where it's being built. And then why did General Lonnie hold up Eric Davis's paper? He held up Eric Davis's scientific paper about teleportation and said that this is an example of the science he wants done in his laboratories. I mean, if you really think that that scientific paper is like speculative nonsense, why would a general, a commander of the Air Force Research Lab do that? Why would he say that? It doesn't sound very speculative to me. Sounds like he really thinks it's real. So the ether is the thing. As Professor Keating said, his biggest complaint is that the ether was debunked. Chat, the ether's been debunked so many times. It's been debunked so many times. That's how things are. That's how we know if things are true. It's how many times it's been debunked. How many people agree or disagree with something determines whether or not it's true. Hey, the ether was debunked in like 1890. It was debunked in 1890. That means it's fake. Bro, we didn't even have quantum mechanics in 1890. Tesla was talking about free energy in 1890. How are you going to quote a scientific experiment that's over 120 years old as your definitive proof that something is true or not? We were riding around on horses. You think there's no way that an experiment from when we were riding around on horses might be flawed? Do you also think that tuberculosis can't be cured either? Do you not believe in modern medicine? Because that's what they believed back then. They believed that they didn't even believe the telephone was real. They didn't believe the telephone was real when they were doing this experiment. But you know what? Observation is observation. Whether or not an experiment is 130 years old or whether or not it came out last year, it doesn't change the validity of the experiment. The observation is the observation. So you know what? Let's just observe the experiment for ourselves. We'll make our own decision about whether or not we think the ether is real. Okay. I've got the experiment all lined up, ready to go here. You can check it out yourself. Martin von Gruznik. There he is. Michelson-Morley experiment. It's a very simple experiment. It's just an interferometer. It's a laser interferometer. And we just spin it around, right? We just spin it around.
The entire interferometer.
So you spin it around and there's no ether, chat. Look, it's spinning and nothing's happening. If there was an ether, these interference patterns should be moving because the ether should be disturbing the light. But it's not. Nothing's happening. Oh no, chat. The ether's been debunked, chat. Was I wrong, chat? The ether. Oh no, the interference pattern. How could I have been wrong? Why would I post a video where I'm wrong? Oh no. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute, chat. Wait a minute. Case Western has debunked the ether, chat. Look, there's no ether. Case Western debunked it. Unless, what if we turn it vertical? What if we just make one change, and we put it sideways? What if it's not horizontal? What if the ether is vertical? Let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see what happens when we turn it vertical. Let's just look with our eyes, chat. Let's look with our eyes. We are adults that can make our own decisions. Oh my goodness, it's moving. It is moving. That interference pattern is moving like crazy. Holy schmolies. How is that true? The path of the light must be changing. The path of the light must be changing. Otherwise, that we shouldn't be seeing an interference pattern moving like this. We should not be seeing a shift of the interference pattern unless there's something impacting the light. So it turns out, wow, once again, the only thing that we had to do was turn it sideways. The only thing we had to do was turn it sideways, chat. And you can see it move. And the greatest part about this, I'm going to let it show here to the end. The greatest part is that this is the reason right here, is that when the shift, when the interference pattern shifts left or to the right, it goes both ways. The median point where it's perfectly equilibrium is at exactly 180 degrees or exactly even to the plane of the Earth. Exactly even in the plane of the Earth. This shows that the effect is 100% dictated by the distance from the ground. The distance from the ground, 100%. Because when it's perfectly flat, that's your equilibrium point. And then if you go below this way, the interference pattern shifts one direction. And if you go the other way, the interference pattern shifts the other way. So it shows experimentally whatever is happening with that interference pattern shift is related to altitude, distance from the ground. Okay. What is it? What is it that could be different higher up versus lower down? What's different? Oh, hold on. I have a thought. What is different from down below versus high up? Gravity. The force of gravity is different. The force of gravity is stronger the further down you are, closer to the Earth, and the force of gravity is weaker. Look at the replies in the chat. Look at the replies. Everybody knows. This makes me the most happy. Chat, I'm spitting all over myself when I see everybody know the answer to the question beforehand, because it means we've been learning. We've been learning. Good chat. Very good chat. Gravity. There's even a paper by Ishmael. You guys can find it out there. I'm not going to post it right now. That supports this idea and actually says that somebody else also did this experiment and came to the same conclusion. And he says this must be a vertical ether consistent with gravity. Boom. Okay. So, I didn't want to close that. Okay, the other clip I want to play here, and so what is gravity then? And look, I don't even need Professor Keating to talk to me. In fact, he probably shouldn't be talking to me. Like I said, I'm a guy off the street. I'm literally a guy off the street that didn't know anything 2 years ago. Not a PhD physicist. He should be talking to Hal Puthoff or Eric Davis or Charles Chase or the many other Black Project physicists. He should be talking to this guy. He should be talking to this guy right here, Eric W. Davis. I mean, I guarantee you can say as many complicated physics words as you want to Eric Davis, and he's going to have an answer for you. In fact, he's going to make you not understand it, for sure.
that we already know, and a lot of other physicists know, that Einstein proved that gravity is not a fundamental force of nature. It emerges from the fabric of space-time when it's distorted or curved or bent. And Sakharov, he believed that the metric elasticity of space, described by the space-time metric, which is just a very simple equation, actually. And he said,
BTW chat, Andrei Sakharov helped develop the fusion bomb, the H-bomb, for Russia. So there couldn't be more links to the H-bomb and fusion unless unless you tried. It's an emergent phenomenon from the ripples in space-time.
That should come from the quantum vacuum fluctuations, because he sees the quantum vacuum fluctuations as being the seed of all existence. And he was right.
And he was right. He sees the quantum vacuum fluctuations as the seed of all existence. Do you know what that means? Saying that you see the quantum vacuum fluctuations as the seed of all existence is saying that there's an ether filled with infinite energy. And that infinite energy is what creates everything we see around us all the time. And he was right. That's what Eric W. Davis says right there. And he was right.
Basically, that started from Richard Feynman when he got the Nobel Prize for the quantum electrodynamics theory. Right. Gravity is not a force of nature. It emerges from space-time phenomenon, the space-time manifold or the continuum, or however you want to describe it. And it's a coupling constant measures the strength of the interaction force between particles. The coupling constant in general relativity is the universal gravitational constant times 8 pi divided by the speed of light to the 4th power. You know what the units of that are? 1 over force. 1 over newtons.
That's right.
And that's a coupling constant to convert the dimensional units of the stress energy tensor, which is the source of space-time curvature. That's in units of joules per cubic meter, or energy density, or pressure, because the equivalent is newtons per square meter.
Now, why did I show that? Why did I show that? Because I just showed you guys the Veritasium video of him spinning a 40-pound weight over his head with one arm, easily, with no stress. Why is that possible? Because gravity is just a pressure force. It's just a pressure force. So now, how do you manipulate gravity? You just create a pressure force. Doesn't that just simplify it? Doesn't that turn what seemed impossible, what seemed magical and mystical, into something that is now demystified, now is relatively simple to understand? I think so. Okay. Oh, there's one more clip. Last clip I want to show for the Brian Keating situation. I think this is probably the most important one. We could probably, it's only 1 minute. Okay, here we go. This is the part. Now, if you want to play the appeal to authority game, which these guys love to play, which, by the way, if you like the appeal to authority game, Jack Sarfati tried to one-up Professor Brian Keating, and it's actually hilarious because they're like trying to one-up each other on who's got the most credentials. And Sarfati literally took, I think it's an image of his diploma. Like, dude, nobody cares about your diploma, bro. You're like 89 years old. But anyway, it's enjoyable. Okay, here you go. This is that's an image of Anna Polina Luna, Congresswoman Anna Polina Luna, who is just on Joe Rogan talking about UFOs, sitting right next to Eric W. Davis. This is a very fashionable image of SpongeBob SquarePants right here, next to Eric W. Davis's scientific papers: traversable wormholes, stargates, and negative energy. The other paper on the right, teleportation physics study. Teleportation physics study. Are you with me still? Now let's just listen to the words that are going to be said here.
Now comes word of this article.
Yes, that is George Knapp. You are listening to Coast AM, April 1st, 2006. Let me repeat that. This is Coast AM, April 1st, 2006. You can find it yourself. I found this and I edited it up.
By Gary S. Beckham, in which he suggests that the Defense Intelligence Agency, that's a very spooky guys in the government, have been taking a look at your teleportation study. In addition, they've been supposedly an elite DIA Tiger Committee has been taking a look at some of the stuff that's near and dear to my heart, work that's been done by NIDS about Skinwalker Ranch, which, as a matter of full disclosure, folks, I'm a co-author of a book about the hunt for the skinwalker. And what do you know about DIA interest in your research and in what was done on the ranch?
As far as their interest in my teleportation study, that has always been the case since the study was released. My study has been waived by the former commander of AFRL, that's General Lamy. He had a copy of that study at the War College, waved it around and said, this is an example of the kind of research I want done in my laboratories and of the kind of thinking I want done, because we've got to look to the future. The future is everything.
Holy crap. General Laney, commander of the Air Force Research Labs, was holding up Eric Davis's teleportation physics study. This is the example of the research I want done in my labs and the thinking I want done by my people. Okay, guy, the DIA is the Defense Intelligence Agency. They're the ones that commissioned the DIRDs. Like that. Oh, I don't have it up there. Okay, well, I thought I was sharing that again. The DIRDs, that teleportation, the traversable wormholes paper, and the other 38 papers. The Defense Intelligence Agency is the one that commissioned those papers through Hal Puthoff. So people wonder, like, why do we not know about it? Because it's national security. It's Air Force. I mean, what do you guys think here? What do you think is going on with all this? Do you think that General Laney was just a Star Trek fan? You think General Laney's like, you know what, guys, I'm a great Star Trek fan, and this guy Eric Davis wrote this fun sci-fi scientific paper that was never going to be real. It's never possible because space is an empty vacuum, but we spent all this money on it, on this paper for him to do all this research, and I'm going to hold it up, and I'm going to say that this is what I want them to, this is what I want done in my labs. I want fake science that's not possible done in my research labs. So when they try to play the appeal to authority, you're not a PhD. You don't know how physics works. You say you don't know how physics works. Who knows more about physics? Some Case Western academic who's now at what, San Diego something or other, or the Air Force Research Labs? Who knows more about science? Who has better access to scientific secrets? Is it some random university, or is it the literal military and military industrial complex and defense contractors? Yeah, it's definitely the defense contractors every single time. Whew. So I don't know. I mean, what does it take for people to understand what's going on? I actually just don't even know, man. I really don't know. We're so far beyond like where this is all at. I mean, the public, I don't know when they were ever going to figure this out. But one last thing I do want to say, looking at my other posts here, is that Professor Keating is not a deep state agent or whatever, you know, and we sometimes call Ross Coulthart deep state or whatever. Like, I think these guys are just from another era, and their mindset is they can't believe this kind of stuff is possible. This kind of stuff is real. Here's the hard truth, guys, is that we are probably never going to convince them. People are rigid, man. They're stuck in their ways. What was that clip? Must die. Gotta die. Yeah, okay. This is the clip right here. I found it. They're stuck in their ways. We're never going to convince them. But doesn't mean they're deep state. Doesn't mean they're working for the government. It just means that's human nature, man. That's
and then
human
the last
nature.
thing I wanted to bring up, I have 10 more, but I won't talk, is the concept that people must die. In order for to have progress, people must die. And the reason why they must die is, I remember in the early days, I did the first instrumentation on an airplane, and it was to just simply do the fuel tank, and it was done by wire, and it was to measure the fuel in a fuel tank. And this old guy at Boeing opposed it and opposed it and opposed it. We were doing it for Simmons Precision, and all of a sudden I get the call one day, he died. So now we can move forward. And so when you're talking about these organizations and these peer review boards, they consist of people. And these people are dead in their ways, and they're superimpose things, and they make things not happen, and they're powerful people. They've got to die. In fact, who said this was Clark?
So even the engineers know the situation. Though that's like a network of Black Project engineers in that Zoom call. And they all know the situation. They're going, people's minds don't get changed. Once they're set in their ways, they're set in their ways. Their viewpoint of reality has been set. Space is an empty vacuum. For them to admit they're wrong about that would be for them to go against everything they've been standing for the last several decades. Sadly, I think people just have to die. I don't have a better answer for you on that front, guys. Okay, so I'm going to do some super chats here, and then we're going to take a look at Richard Bendurick. Okay, so thank you, ZPE Disclosure. Appreciate that donation early on. That was awesome of you. Caleb says, have you ever given Roger Ellman a look? I don't know who he is. Nature of Matter has a website. It's pretty interesting. Thank you for pointing him out. I appreciate that. Thank you for the donation. Destroy the Cave. Helian's parent company built nukes and worked with the U.S. Air Force on advanced propulsion in the 80s and 90s. Yep. And not only that, his name is Dr. John Slow, and he worked with Amy Eskridge's dad, Richard Eskridge, of NASA Marshall Space Flight Laboratory. And they worked on fusion propulsion. And now he's the co-founder. Dr. John Slow is now the co-founder of Helion Fusion. Yep. World's fake as hell, chat. Mike M, thank you for that donation. We aren't cooked. Ashton is cooking. LFG, thank you guys very much. This has been an awesome live stream so far. Mick Leonard, JD, thank you very much for that donation. And then thank you very much again, Justin, for this huge donation. Wow, another huge donation from Win in Sedona. So just says, keep up the great work. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, Win in Sedona. And then my cat friend says, translation is a biatch. Language barrier is real. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Hey Ocean, for that donation. And then thank you, Catman, again, for the follow-up donation. Truth is already out. It's just a game of wordplay right now. It is. We are definitely just in a narrative control. Let's take a look at Rumble Chat. Hey, Rumble Chat. Empty Payload is low. Gave a gifted subscription. Thank you very much. Appreciate the gifted subscription. Travis Seidlinger says they need to redo the experiment and rotate it 180 degrees. Talking about the Michelson-Morley experiment. And we put it on a space probe too. And what you'll find out, those EM drives, they've been testing EM drives. There's like 3 different companies trying to do EM drive. One of them is IVO, and their EM drive like a year ago, just like their test mysteriously failed. Like they didn't have no data at all. Sorry, no data. Just it wasn't success or not a success. We just couldn't test it. Oops. So keep an eye on these tests that they're doing in outer space because they're trying to test it in 0 Gs and see if this stuff really works. Because they're not going to let that stuff come out. Now, Pilled Chat, holy crap, Pilled Chat's going wild today. Woke and Walked, gifted the can. No patents, build it and open source it. Now, I did want to point this out as well, guys. The idea that you're going to build it and open source it, never going to happen. Never in a million years. This is something now I understand why as well, though. Because a lot of people have thought, even Stephen Greer, that, open source it, put the patents out there, put the schematics out there. You can't even get the materials. They control the supply lines, guys. And now we're talking about an era where we're building microchips. How many of these free energy devices are microchips? Most of them. Most of them are microchips. Who controls the microchips? The United States government just took over 10% of Intel. Why do you think they did that? They want control. They want to have leverage in the microchip business. Even if Intel's not the number one, whatever, that's a strategic alliance, right? So, unfortunately, even if we open source it, there's nothing we can do. If open sourcing it could have worked, we would have already done that a long time ago. The Liberty Engine guys would have done it, or some other people would have done it. That's the shitty part is we're really boxed in. You can't even open source it either. And you can't be like, because I remember I was reading a reply from somebody the other day. They were going, just tell everybody how to build it, and then somebody will supply everybody the materials they need, and everybody will just build it in their own home. How fast do you think the government will shut that down? The government's going to go right after the person supplying the materials and shut them down. This is how like they can control every part of it, sadly. So there really isn't a lot of options for us. Filter Dog says, I can't believe a geek is ripping them a new asshole. Love you, Ashton. I mean, he kind of destroyed himself in those replies too, just from the way that he was replying to it and being condescending about it, where like, if you're a professor, kind of the same way where like, if you're an MMA fighter, you kind of have a duty not to go beat random people up because you're literally trained to fight people. If you're a scientist, if you're a physicist, you kind of have a duty to educate people, to inform them, to not just be a lazy debunker. Like anybody could have done what Professor Keating did. They just feed it into AI, ask Grok to answer. Like, that's basically what the answer I got. How about explain it conceptually, explain the experiments and your interpretation of the experiments and why they show that space is an empty vacuum. Explain how you can have a gravity wave in an empty vacuum that's not a medium. Explain how an electromagnetic wave transmits through an empty vacuum. How does a wave transmit through a non-medium, even though all waves require mediums? Those are just some basic thoughts, right? Okay, and then let's see. Yeah, and Ziploc asked about the Ian Crossland episode. Guys, check that out. Ian Crossland episode was really good. I actually want to do a follow-up with him on that. Like, we just have good rapport back and forth. I felt like it was just a kind of normal conversation. I will get that re-uploaded, guys. So when you do see it re-uploaded, it is a replay. Then Woke Not Walked asked more. He says, Stokes' theorem is used in quantum electrodynamics to study phenomenon where the connection between the line integrals and the surface integrals help describe magnetic fields, affect charged particles. That apply that to ZPE. So 0-point energy is electromagnetic, and it could be a superfluid medium. So we're going to get into some of the plasma stuff here in a minute, so hang tight. And then Ripple, he mentions Ripple. So Ripple was when the United States government was building thermonuclear weapons, fusion bombs. And then they found that the energy release was much higher than what they expected. This should be another thing that gives people pause. Physicists built a thermonuclear weapon or a nuclear weapon, and when they detonated it, it released, I think, 2.5 times as much energy as they expected. I think they expected 6 megatons, and it was like 15. People should kind of wonder, where's all that extra energy coming from? That's a huge amount of excess energy. And then Woke Not and Walked sent a link. Thank you guys very much. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to take a look at tonight is this video by... Oh, before we do that, we have this to play. Here we go. Truman chat. This is for all the mainstream academic physicists out there. This is for you. This is for you. Pay attention. Here it is. Can I make this full screen? Tissue.
You think anyone in Hiroshima or Nagasaki gives a shit who built the bomb? They care who dropped it. I did.
Mr. President.
You think, oh, isn't that the best part in that clip? The best part is after he cries, after Oppenheimer cries, I feel like I have blood on my hands. And then Truman comes back and says, you think you have blood on your hands? I dropped the bomb and killed hundreds of thousands of people. And who knows the long-term damage. He goes, get out of here. He goes, and as he's walking out in the movie, he goes, don't let that crybaby back in here. Don't let that crybaby back in here. Holy shit, that's cold-blooded. That's cold-blooded. And some people might go, there's no way that's real. There's no way. Well, it's at least based on a true story, chat. It's at least based on a true story. Here we go.
The business, and that is Henry L. Stimson, that the only operation that the Japanese would understand would be one that would show them what it was. And that's what happened. And it stopped the war. I don't care what the crybabies say now because they didn't have to make the decision.
Wow. Okay. It's not a joke. It's not a joke at all. Holy crap. I don't care what the crybabies say because they didn't have to make the decision. Damn, Truman was hard as hell, chat. Woo. I might have to manifest my Truman in the future. It's like, oh, I don't even care if the world's about to be destroyed by 0-point energy. You don't have to make that decision. So you know what? I don't want to hear the crybaby bullshit about Ashton Forbes was mean to me. I have a PhD. I demand respect. You have to respect me. Bro, if you throw these weak physics ideas at me that I can just destroy with a 1-minute video clip that I've already got queued up, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. I didn't realize we were still stuck on space is an empty vacuum. I thought we were beyond that already. But since we're already back at that, I'm sorry, but we can't just be nice to everybody all the time. Clearly, something has gone off the rails in history here where we've just completely lost the plot. If we're this far off the mark, then I'm sorry, but we got to just be mean to people again. In fact, I'm starting to wonder if we should have brought back bullying. Like, when we got rid of bullying, is this why we're so soft? Is this why, like, nobody wants to tell the truth? So I was actually happy when Professor Keating was finally like, I'm on Professor Dave's side. You're a grifter, scammer, and a fraud. Because you know what? Finally, I got to see the true Professor Keating. All these people are always just lying all the time with a mask on everywhere they go, bullshitting, never giving their true opinions about people. Finally, I got to have the mask slip. We finally got to see the real opinions and the real emotions. And we need more of that, because at the end of the day, only one of us is right. Either space is empty or space is not empty. And spoiler alert, space is not empty. Okay, this is sort of a moment of Zen, but it's going to be a little bit longer. I want to just go ahead and show now. Here, is this it? Oh, okay. We're going to save the quantum physics thing for next time, guys. I was going to go over this quantum physics thing from Sabine Hassenfelder, which is really cool, but I think we can just save it for Friday. Talk about teleportation, talk about 0-point energy. Instead, I'm going to show this video. Wait. Where is it? Where's the Richard Ben Durek video chat? Is it over here? Oh, yeah, I think this is it. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Back to this video. Remember the Richard Ben Durek video. Okay, so this video is really long, chat. So this is Richard Ben Durek. Richard Ben Durek, if you're not familiar with him, he was saying that we've got alien metamaterials. And I was like, this dude's crazy. I was like, this dude's crazy. He's talking about alien metamaterials. What is he talking about? And then I saw this video, and he's not talking about alien metamaterials anymore. Now he's talking about Maxwell's equations. Now he's talking about free energy. Now he's talking about asymmetrical electromagnetic systems. So now I say, oh, okay, well, that's pretty interesting. So let's skip ahead up here to 44 minutes. Okay, that
electron moving around in an atom. I mean, you can take this wire and turn it into a coil and form it. You would have something close, but even then, these fields, if you were to break them into the components, are not going to all follow the rules of superposition. So this is a comparison of a current flowing through electric current and magnetic moment. So basically, the wire is equivalent to an electron circling the atom, except that the electron now is moving at a much greater speed. So, and the current loop produces a magnetic moment just like a coil of wire, and it experiences torque just like a coil of wire. And so you can model it just the same with a north and south as you can model a coil of wire with a north and south.
So that's pretty crazy. What's he saying right there? He's saying that when we make a coil of wire around something, a ring, it's modeling an atom. It's modeling an atom. That's a pretty profound thought that I hadn't even really considered before. Why is it that a donut, a toroid, is the shape? Well, it turns out that shape might also just be the shape of like how we imagine an electron orbital around an atom. So I thought that was a pretty fun, just interesting thought process. But he also mentions this idea now that the actual electron itself is producing a magnetic moment. Who said this? Who also said this? If you guys watch my content, you know who. NASA's Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu is the one saying that electrons are little magnets as well. Everything's a little magnet. This is what Richard Ben Durek is saying. Richard Ben Durek is basically in this presentation, he is giving us the missing link between Paul Thibodeau's graphene free energy battery and Dr. Yu's magnetic muon theory. I actually didn't think we were going to be referencing Dr. Yu again here tonight, but there you go. That's what he's talking about right here.
But is the magnetic field?
And he's saying then what he says next here is that depending on the drift, the current drift, this will determine the frame reference, the frame dragging supposedly of the electron. So you can actually cause these effects to happen by having two different materials stacked on each other, because the two different materials will have two different electron drifts. And then if you have a material that has a really high electron drift, remember graphene, the material Paul Thibodeau was using, graphene has a really high electron drift, super fast. So if we put a copper plate next to a graphene plate, we're going to see relative electron drift. And then he says, if you have them go in opposite directions, then this increases the effect. Why? The same way where we would see a Doppler effect if I run in the opposite direction of you. Because now the wave pattern is getting stretched out between the two of us as we run in opposite directions. Versus if we're running together, comes together, squeezes together. So this is the same concept. Apply this to an electric circuit. Apply it to an electric circuit, and now we have our drift velocities. And now this is the weirdest part. This can impact electricity. This can actually have a physical impact to what we see as electricity. So let's let him play this out a little bit. I'm going to skip ahead a couple minutes. Let's go to this.
Electromagnetic tensor, and now all of a sudden you can't solve problems like maybe unifying gravity with electric force. So we'll go on. So we have to rewrite Maxwell's equations in a way that removes a magnetic field, because a magnetic field can be generated from all sorts of different charges and different inertial reference frames, and just gives us an electric field component. Because James Maxwell unified the electric field with the magnetic field. We should be able to do the same with gravity, and toss that magnetic field. So this is the modern way it's done again, except now it's being done from a different potential, and we're using the relativity, V over C, for the potentials and how those potentials change. And I don't expect you to know how to do this, but the resulting equations now, when we do this derivation, which is really the same as Maxwell did, except now we're doing it in a general case and not especially for a wire conductor, we get three equations. We get the electric field equation. These we have these two terms, which are the same ones that were Maxwell's equations, but now we got this one, which is known as Lorentz force, that we can use to calculate the magnetic field from. But now we also have the scalar potential again. So now we got this thing. Of course, we don't need to gauge it out now, because now we have the units for it. It's volts.
So now we get the scalar potential. The scalar potential comes back. Have you seen a pattern yet, chat, in the science? Everybody points out, well, that when you realize space is not empty, now we have to go redo Maxwell's equations, and now we realize the scalar potential comes back, a longitudinal ripple through the ether. So now what he says after this, he says, okay, if this physics is real, then what should happen is a wire should explode. The longitudinal effects should cause a wire to explode. Guess what? It does. There is experimental scientific papers that do show that happening. So if I skip ahead a little bit, and I'm kind of skipping through some of the science, you guys can check this video out. I highly recommend it, especially if you are an electrical engineer. You probably should read this, because it's all about, if we imagine these atoms and these electrons, it's how they're interacting with each other. How they're interacting with each other, and then applying general relativity to them. So we're saying, what would it look like from the perspective of the electron? If we model every electron moving around, what would it look like from each perspective, and how would they interact with each other? That tells us what really is happening in reality. That's what this is showing here in this part of the presentation. So let's skip ahead a little bit more. I think it's right about here.
It's really going to be dependent on how long and how straight the wire is. And at this point, electromagnetics says wires don't experience longitudinal forces. So why don't we observe them? Well, actually we do. These are 5 papers out of dozens that are printed. This is
electrical engineering says wires don't feel longitudinal forces. But if there is an ether, then circuits should be feeling these longitudinal forces. Well, here you go. How many papers is this? Several different papers right here.
We have longitudinal forces in the wire, and these longitudinal forces can tear a wire apart. They either be a lateral force or a force that actually puts stress in the material of the wire. Example would be this one here. What they did to measure these longitudinal forces is they would have a wire sitting in a fixture, and they'd have a spark gap on either side. And what they would basically do is they would apply a potential to the spark gap, and the electric current would jump the spark and then flow through the wire, and then the wire would break up in individual segments. And that breaking up of the wire is not predicted by electromagnetics. In fact, it says electromagnetics should not do that. There should not be any kind of drag force in the wire that would break it apart. But this new model does, and it does explain these forces, which kind of confirms that we really need to be not using the mathematics that describe a magnetic field, because we're limiting the types of interactions we can model.
So right there, that's the big takeaway. If we use a limited model, Maxwell's simplified equations, then none of this stuff is possible. So when you hear physicists, especially academic theoretical physicists, say that this stuff's not possible, it's because their math doesn't allow it. And again, it's so simple why they're wrong. So I wasn't actually trying to be rude when I said Brian Keating didn't understand the physics. I'm just being literal. If you don't understand space is not empty, you're not really understanding the physics. You're missing the most fundamental aspect. If you think that Maxwell's simplified equations are all there is, then you have a simplified view of the world. But if you add back in the scalar potential, everything we can already do is still possible, but it adds one new element, gravity manipulation. And gravity manipulation leads to fusion and all the other science that we've been missing. Warp drives, free energy, wormholes, everything. Okay, last bit.
So then let's go to implementation, because really, all this theoretical stuff that people put out is just kind of, whatever. If you can't build something from it, then it doesn't mean anything. So this is how you implement it. They can't get my thing to flip that well. There.
So how do we build it, right? Because everybody says, hey, show me, show me, show me. These guys are showing you. The problem now is this already goes, it was already over most of our heads. And now it's about to get even more, but at least we can understand the basic concepts. And it turns out it's pretty much just like Paul Thibodeau's. They're very similar to his setup.
Okay, so got a problem with my computer. There. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make a block or a thing. We're going to have two conductors in there, made of two materials that are different, that have drift velocities that are different. What we want to do is we want the currents go in the opposite direction, right, in the materials, because a good way to get the currents not to follow the rules of superposition is have them go in different directions, right? Especially when you're using a stationary thing. Again, that's written out of electromagnetics. So electromagnetics says currents flowing in the opposite direction in conductors is going to be the same kind of forces or the same magnitude forces as currents flowing in the same directions. It's just one's going to be attractive and one's going to be repulsive. And then so since we need to keep them separated, we're going to need an insulated sheet here. And then we don't want to use a wire. We want to use a block of some kind, because really you want a large surface area, right? A wire's not going to give that much force, but something with a large amount.
This looks super similar to a Josephson junction. This looks super similar to a Josephson junction, right? What do we talk? What do we act? Material A, material B. These are just semiconductors, right? Different semiconductors, different materials, and we have an insulator in the middle of them. That's actually what just a Josephson junction is.
Surface area is. And of course, these power sources can't have any connection to ground or even chassis. So if A and B are made of the same material and powered by modern power supplies, which is a modern regulated power supply with connection to ground somewhere, material A equals B, we're not going to see any external force. And I put it in non-conductors with different drift velocities, they'll cause the electric current in model A and B to observe different forces.
So what he says is you can't use the same material. It has to be different materials between two different levels. And he says, why? Because we can't create a force from nothing. We actually aren't creating a force from nothing in these situations. We're creating an asymmetry, and that's why we get the force. This is probably why Charles Chase was questioning Paul Thibodeau. He was saying, does this only work if the temperature fluctuates? Because there should be a change in order to generate a force. Charles Chase is probably right. My guess is the reason why Charles Chase was asking that question is he knew that's how it worked. And Paul Thibodeau was saying, no, it still works even if the temperature is constant. So there's probably more to dig into there. So again, we're not actually breaking the laws of physics. We're just kind of cheating them a little bit. So he says, the conductor made of A must observe a different field than the material of conductor B. So this will now allow us to essentially break. We don't follow the laws, the rules of superposition when we have this happen. And this can allow for length contraction, like with our Doppler, right? The stretching or compression, depending on the movement of our electrons. Now, the last thing about this, I don't think I have the clip up ready. Maybe I do. Let me see. Paul Thibodeau, in his presentation, I don't have it. He was saying that when they set up their circuit, it only worked if they made a vortex. If the circuit made a vortex like this, is if these two things were going in opposite directions. If they were going in the same direction, it wouldn't work. It only worked if they created a vortex where the things were going in opposite directions. That was the only way he could get it to work. And that was with his free energy microchip. Now, why is that true? Because he was using the same principles that Richard Ben-Durek was explaining. He was saying we can actually manipulate this electron drift and achieve velocities that are close enough to the speed of light that it's actually manipulating the effects at a quantum level. Manipulating the effects at a quantum level. Much like how if you were to accelerate towards the speed of light, time would be slowing down for you. Which just seems weird, time dilation. The same time dilation that applies to us when we speed up applies to the electrons, applies to the photons as well. And that's why these effects are real. Is that it's not a matter of us breaking the laws of physics. The laws of physics are just weird to begin with. They're weird to begin with. And this is why to land this plane, it's my new phrase I like to say, is I vehemently disagree with the Demystify Science crew when they said they didn't think time dilation was real. No, time dilation is real. Einstein's equations show time dilation is real, and we've tested it. And time dilation being real is what is needed for these effects to exist. Time dilation is what makes these seemingly magical effects reality. Thank you guys, MH370X. I appreciate you. Let's do a last couple donos for tonight. Which scientist will they send after you next? I don't think they're sending any of these people after me. I think that it's just reaching a point where you can't be ignored anymore. You really can't be ignored anymore because we're influencing too many people. We're influencing too many people. The imperial family betrayed the people and sold out the country to Western powers, have it become a nuclear test site. I don't know if he's talking about Japan, but if so, that's very sad. Sad to hear it. And then Woke and Walked gives the cookie, that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. I think that's a great way to end it. That's a great quote to end it on, guys. I hope you had a great night. I hope you enjoyed it. On Friday, we will talk about quantum mechanics, EPR. We've talked about wormholes. Now it's time to go back and talk about quantum entanglement. Hope you guys have a great night. Peace out, everybody.
In the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow.
Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeezed so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism plates so fine, spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound, a shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear.